Good afternoon. How are you guys doing today? Wanted to jump on and basically dial in some fundamental work before OWC next week. There's a handful of you guys that are actually coming out to train with us. So I just wanted to get on and just kind of showcase some of the stuff that you guys are actually going to be learning. This is really going to help all of you guys that are either starting, with acrylic or kind of have a really good understanding but want to take it to another level. Let me show you guys what we're going to do. Hello to everybody. I'm going to keep the comments on today. I'm not going to switch them up. If I don't reply, please don't get frustrated. It's hard for me to pay attention to what comes on the screen while I'm working. Okay, so I have the tip on, right? Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to cover some basic fundamental work before we actually get into sculpting. One of the things that a lot of you that are coming out are going to get familiar with, first of all, is this, right? This is your electric file. I have a safety bit on right now. I want to be able to show you guys. The arrows are pointing to each other. If I twist it to unlock it, the bit will come out. I'm going to go ahead and slap on an arbor band with a sanding band. It's a new one that I just put on. I want to be able to show you guys if I'm running my E-file at a low speed, 3,000 RPMs. It's a very, very gentle pressure. The pressure I'm going to be using is the same pressure as I was tickling the underside of my wrist. Okay, so what we want to be able to do is when we're going through prep, I'll give you guys kind of a zoom out. Like, I really try, if my customer's hands are in, it's very easy for me to get the corner of their nail by just lightly tickling. You can see how I'm running the electric file almost parallel, right, to that point. So if I was to draw this out for you, I guess the best way to kind of explain it is if this was the cuticle area, right? If that's the cuticle area, and this is the barrel I'm going to be working with. I'm not running the barrel like this, right? I'm running the barrel, right? So this is always going to run perpendicular to the line, right? So it's always running perpendicular to the line, and in a very, very close-up view, if I was tickling the natural nail, I'm running this barrel, right? As you can see, let's get in really close so that you can see that? So it's very easy for me to, and I'm going in one direction, so I'm right-handed, so I always want to go, I don't want to go this way because then the bit slips. If I'm lightly tickling in one direction and the barrel runs perpendicular, right, to that line, that cuticle line, it's very easy for me to remove shine around the perimeter of the nail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go lightly around. I work corner to corner, so you'll notice that if I have balance, right, just like I'm writing, correct, right? So if I'm writing with my pen, it's going to be the same positioning as though I'm holding onto my electric file. I'm not going to hold it here. I'm not going to hold it like this or like this. I want to hold it tight so I have good balance, and I want it to be able to rest in the crease in my hand so that when I'm actually removing shine, right, and I'm using a feathering motion, this is really great. You're going to notice that when I'm feathering the shine, I'll be able to tickle away the shine, and I'm working this way, right? Tickle, 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 all the way down, right? At a very, very low speed, you're going to see how effective that is. I'm going to be able to gently remove shine from the surface of the nail without doing any damage at all. This is a lot of the technique that you're going to be using, especially if you're removing, say, gel from the surface of the nail. I'll give you an example, right? This was that nail that I did last week. Let's say that I wanted to remove this from the surface, right? There's all gel on here. Well, I'm not going to be using this to remove. What I want to be able to use, again, is the safety bit, right? So what I could do is, you'll notice if I run it at and I had it at 3,000 RPM. So what I'm going to end up doing is, let's say I go to 9,000, okay? Let's say I go to 9,000. I go ahead and flip this on. Obviously, it's going to be a lot faster, but you're going to notice that when I'm actually removing gel from the surface, what I'll usually do is, let me just try to get a really good position so that you guys can see, okay? If I'm going around the cuticle, right, you can see how by using that light tickling motion, I have yellow acrylic underneath. So as I'm tickling away, right, I'm not doing this. I'm not going side to side. If you go side to side, there's always that opportunity, right, or the chance of the barrel slipping underneath. If you're coming in this direction here, right, and I'm using a light tickling motion, you're going to be able to feather off the gel really, really fast. So, again, I have yellow acrylic underneath. I use it as a foundation so that when I'm actually doing my design, I don't have to worry about being too sheer in color. A lot of the times when you're doing gel design, you could use, say, a semi-opaque white, like a soft white or a soft yellow. I took one of the lemon yellows from the Slick Pour line, and I actually cut it with core white, and it gave me the ability to actually sculpt that out. It's very, very pretty. Okay, so let's go back, right, to application. So, or actually preparation. We went ahead and we prepped that nail, right? So what we want to be able to do at this point is remove the oils and contaminants from the surface. So if you take swipe and you clean the surface, all right, I'm going to scrub it, right? You're going to notice, right? This is plastic, but you can see all the grime on the plastic that I'm able to remove. This is the same thing as natural nails. You want to be able to remove all the oils and contaminants from the surface of the nail before you use protein bond. So we're going to use 2 coats. And again, you're going to be using this prep for a lot of the enhancements that you do. There's a lot of people that are just getting into learning how to do nails, and I know they're completely, fearful of the electric file. I understand why, because you've probably, as a client or somebody who gets your nails done on a regular basis, have had your nails burned. Once you understand how to use it properly, once you understand how to use the machine where it benefits you as the professional, you're never going to go back to using something like this to do all your work. Like, this is just going to lead to, breakdown of your wrist, carpal tunnel syndrome, or you can even put rings of fire or even do damage with a hand file. It's understanding how to use the tools properly so that you have success with prep as well as with some of the maintenance that you guys are going to be doing. Okay, so let's get right to application. This is prepped. I'm going to wait. This is a regular nail that I have. I want to show you one of the fundamentals that a lot of you who are coming out are going to be working with. So for those of you who have trained with me in the past, great. For those of you guys who haven't trained with me, just to give you guys a little bit of history about myself, I've been teaching for 25 plus years. We've been in business for 30. I've been teaching for 25. It's definitely a passion of mine. So you're going to notice, right? If I submerge my brush and I have this really, really wet and I tap it, for me to get great results, right? A workability that's going to flow for me, I need to pull back and then bounce inside the powder to get a nice fluffy pearl. All right. So if you guys have seen this done by other professionals, I can guarantee they've been watching me quite a bit of time. Submerge your brush, right? Again, pull back, bounce, bounce, bounce. Get yourself a nice fluffy bead, right? Can you guys hear? Can you guys hear me? You can't hear? I just noticed that. Oh, okay, perfect. So As long as you guys can hear me, that's all that matters. Okay, you see how I have a divot inside there? Make sure that you guys flatten that out. That way you're going to be able to get a smooth surface to work off of. Pull back, bounce, bounce, bounce. This is going to give you the ability to pick up a nice fluffy pearl, okay? You'll also notice the consistency. It's all the same, right? So if I submerge my brush, and again, I pull back and I bounce, 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 right? It's the same tempo. I'm gonna be able to pick up the same size beads. If I wanted something smaller, if I was working on a pinky, then what I would do is I would probably pull back and bounce once, right? Pull back and bounce once, instead of bouncing multiple times. Submerge my brush, again, pull back, bounce once, and then I'm gonna get the same exact bead. This is how you're going to build consistency. So if I wanted to do an overlay and I wanted to, say, cover a surface, let's just say this was the natural nail right there, and then you glued this tip on and you actually shaped it, filed it, prepped it, did everything right so that you're working on a flat surface. Because a lot of times when you're actually doing tips, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of a tip you're working on. Once you mount it onto the nail, right? Once you mount that tip or you sculpt a tip, let's just use this as an example, but let's say I use this tip, right? And I mount this tip on and then I cut it, I file it, I blend it, I shape it. It's gonna look like this when it's done, right? So, I mean, you have to be able, right, to master the overlay if you're going to get really good at acrylic. I can teach you, and a lot of people can teach you how to do tips or glue a tip on. You're going to learn that in school. I can teach you how to sculpt, right, the tip onto the nail with ease, because to tell you the truth, putting on forms is not as hard as everyone says they are. It just takes some really good understanding on how to get it on. But once you have the tip on just like this, right, you want to be able to execute the overlay. Okay, so watch this. I'm going to try to keep everything in the same view here so that you can see, but you'll notice my brush. If I submerge my brush and I tap one side, this is pretty loaded. I want to be able to pick up a bead that's about half the size of the nail, and I want to be able to get it to flow from this point to this point. The angle I'm going to be holding it at is like that. Look at this. I put this to the side. So I don't want you to hold the finger like this, because then your brush is going to be at this angle here. If you tilt the finger down, the tip of the brush is almost parallel to the table. Look at that, right? So instead of being like this, you're going to be like this. You're also going to notice, like when I set it down like this, the angle of the acrylic when you're setting down is going to be into that shape. So visualize, like if we were looking at the nail from the side, let's say this is the natural nail, right? And this is the natural nail, and you put a tip on, okay? If we tilt this at an angle, and you set the bead down, and then again, the brush is going to be like this, what ends up happening when you press it? You end up pressing it flat, right? You end up pressing it flat. Okay, then when you turn to the side, guess what? You're going to have that angle, right? It's not going to be too flat, because the finger's angled down. You don't want it flat like this. You don't want to push it down and back, because then you're going to end up flooding the cuticle and the sidewalls. If you have the finger pointed down this way and you set your brush down this way, look at the angle that I'm actually setting the acrylic. So when I go straight, do you see that? Boom. That is what you want to be able to create. All right, so let's get right back to setting this down. I want to be able to break this down into as much detail. So for those of you guys that are learning this, it's really easy. It's the small things that matter that are going to make all the difference in the world when you're actually doing this. Okay, so let's get in tight. Boom, I have this, boom, just like that. I'm going to submerge my brush. I'm going to, again, my finger is down, right? And then I'm lightly going to touch. I'm going to pull back. I'm going to bounce, 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 half the size. Watch this. I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, at 4, I'm going to release, and then I'm going to use the tip of my brush and just touch, 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 touch. Look how everything is moving. But you can see from the side, look at that, right? So that angle is already there. So if I touch the sides, they're done. Once it gets to this point, you have two options. You could either put a smile line in, or you could use the tip of the brush. Look where I'm pulling. I'm pulling from the front of the bead. I don't pull from here. I pull from the front of the bead, which is basically going to secure the rest of the nail. And as I'm pulling from the front, notice that it actually like becomes nice and tight at the sides, right? As I'm pulling the sides, notice that it's tight as it is here. Look how tight as it is here. When I'm looking at the side profile, I'm building the natural arch. I don't have to force it. I have great consistency as the finger moves down this angle, right? You don't want to be like this. You want to be like this, right? And you'll notice again, like let's say that it's this finger here, right? If I just want you guys to see this angle. I'm going to try to give you guys like dead side angle, okay? If I pick up the bead and I have that angle, bounce, 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 I'm going to count. I'm not going to go right away. Wait, 2, 3, watch this. If I set this here, you see that? Look at this. I'm going to try to work at this side. Look at how I'm just barely touching. Look how I'm barely touching. You see that? Dude, that's exactly what you want. Everything will level to perfection here. Then what you can even come in, wipe your brush, and at this point, if you wanted to pull from the front, don't be frustrated if you don't feel like it's moving. Just give it a couple of seconds as you're pulling down and through. I'm constantly wiping my brush. Every time I pull it, maybe a couple times, I wipe my brush. I'm literally, as I'm doing this. Once you get this, I'm telling you, it's on like Donkey Kong. Like this is really the key to get things moving. Okay.
What's up, guys? I'm the education coordinator for Young Nails Incorporated, and I really hope you guys are enjoying this nail tutorial with Greg Salo. Here's the thing. I don't think you guys know this yet, but there's actually Zoom classes for all this stuff. All about acrylic, all about gel, all about how to use the e-file correctly, just like they do in the salon. A lot of people don't know this. We have Zoom classes for all this stuff. So if you want to take it to the next level, here's what I want you to do, and do it now. 714-992-1400. That's the number to call, or email me, ray@youngnails.com. It's getting filled up, but I want you to call now, 714-992-1400, or email me, ray@youngnails.com. Now let's get back to that tutorial. This thing is awesome.
There is no other, there's no magic way of making the acrylic work. You have to remember that, it needs to breathe. And if it has time to set just a hair, the workability is absolutely beautiful. So, again, how you hold the finger, how you set the finger down, how you set the brush is going to determine the angle, right, of the product at the back end, not just here, but all the way around. I see a lot of comments. You guys are absolutely amazing. Come on here every single time. And again, I know there's a lot of new students. There's a lot of new people who are getting into the business. It's not just about doing crazy work, which I love to do. It's about giving you guys the tools necessary so that you could lay down some amazing nails. Great fundamentals are going to lead to a beautiful canvas that you guys are going to be able to put your artwork on. If you guys have any questions, I'm always here to help. Just reach out. I appreciate you. I love you guys. Have a wonderful day. Peace.
Subscribe channel now. Subscribe channel now. Subscribe to the channel now. Subscribe to the channel.